What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike? This your boy Enlightened Luciferian Prince coming at y'all once again. I know that my last few videos I've been trying to post as many as I can because I've lacked time based upon the situation of being suspended or whatever. It is what it is. I'm gonna keep it coming. So bear with me. We're going to talk about good old-fashioned discharge and what the definition of it really is first before we get into the processes. Now, definitions are always important because definitions, whether or not they are cognitively defined or generally interpreted, they're very important as far as their conclusive effect goes in society and how it goes in your personal resolution on how you apply it to your life and how it also applies to your circumstances as well. I used to put a disclaimer in there when it comes to legal topics because I used to say that this does not constitute legal advice, but in reality it kind of does. But in reality, I'm not giving advice that you can't actually reach generally, because what you can do is actually look up the sources of the information, and the sources are out there as legal sources. Now, I'm not a part of any governmental entity. I'm not a part of any federal, local, state, municipal entity, nor do I hold public office anywhere. So I'm not bound by the states and statutes of the codes, I should say, that say I can't give legal advice. I can give as much legal advice away for free as I want to. Now, it's up to each individual to practice it with their own discretion. But let's proceed. Let's talk about it. Here's my war machine over here. A little something. Let's talk about discharge. Practice. The act of which a person in confinement under some legal processes or held on an accusation of some crime or misdemeanor is set at liberty. The writing containing the order for his being so set at liberty is also called a discharge. That is pertaining to incarceration. Definition 2. The discharge of a defendant in prison under a CASA when made by the plaintiff has operation of satisfying the debt. The plaintiff having no other remedy, but when the discharge is in the consequence of the insolvent laws or the defendant dies in prison, the debt is not satisfied. Woo-hoo-wee. Ain't that a shame? We'll talk about the Monday prison system a little bit later into this segment. In the first place, the plaintiff has a remedy against the property the defendant acquired after his discharge, and in the last case, against the executors or administrators of the debtor. Now, you can look further into D. Bing on execution in 266. If you have Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1856 edition, you can see exactly what I'm saying. However, discharge of a contract, the act of making a contract or agreement null. Now, I said discharge in regards to prisoner or one who is imprisoned due to a contractual nexus created between the natural person and the state entity acting as the beneficiary for their trust, or a free inhabitant or an individual who's basically contracting with third-party entities. Your job as a free entity is to make sure that you particularly do not accept liability. Every time I try to explain to people in so many ways, I try to explain, and time again, they still don't get it. Everything offered to you as a service is something that is basically trying to take something away from you. Now, this might require substance. This might require time. This might require you yourself to be indebted in some way contractually to basically make good upon a promise or operate in what is called by law in good faith. Or the latter. You can take your ass to jail and prison and will receive all the benefits and the so-called entitlements to your trust because it's still contractual. Now, a lot of people might be asking, well, get to the point. How do I make a contract null and void? First off, taking into strict consideration that by the verbiage that's used on the form, as far as to the addressee, is never actually mailed to the proper individual. It's not in propria persona. It is mailed to you because it is requiring you, the natural person who actually accrues or makes revenue, to provide a remedy that otherwise is basically burdening a debt-laden system. Now, we already know the schematics of the bankruptcy of 1933. We know that. That's elementary at this stage on these videos. However, you have to take into strict consideration that although it be elementary, it's still very pertinent. And you have to basically enforce who that bill or charge should be basically placed against or lodged against, but you should basically tell yourself in but so many words that you're not responsible. Now, there are exceptions. One, if you're a person who has committed a crime against somebody or their property, then this video isn't for you. Now, if you're an individual who basically has very little to minor interpretation on how these processes work, then you should stick around. Now, if you all these super sovereign specifics that I run across from time to time again, but you still don't understand what discharging is, that lets me know one of two things. One, without being prejudgmental, you don't know what discharge is, or you don't have a clue to how it applies to anything you're dealing with in your personal life. Or two, you're just trying to garner and furnish information so you can publish it on PDFs, which a lot of people purchase free of their own time and interest as far as their storage is concerned. And it don't tell them exactly what the specific remedy is, because what they do is they take the information, they take the vital parts out, and then they publish it on social media platforms such as Scribe, and then y'all purchase this with your investment and believing that it's true because you haven't done any research. What these people are agents. They are aiding and abetting the system because there are certain people, names aside, who are furnishing this information. Let me tell you something. This information is no primary source that can particularly say what indeed discharge really is or how it applies. You have variations of discharge, but as far as your situation is concerned, you cannot generalize it based upon the failure of another individual's documentation towards something you know very little to nothing about. Or you're just going to spend a lot of money with a lot of people who pretend to know something and are really working for the establishment to keep your debts from being absolved. I just read a definition that the individual said that in the reality of the man dying in prison, hypothetically speaking, if a man dies in prison, his debt's not paid. Who in the fuck gave the ability to a system to basically say that we perpetually owe anybody anything? Because on the temporal plane, you can only owe what is materialistically available. But now let's go into the Monday prison system. The Monday prison system of this world is to try to encapture and ensnare your soul into a system where they want energy to be provided for a financial system that is claimed, as they say, in perpetuity to be run by the economic factor of human participation. Well, this individual passed away. Other individuals passed away. Our family members have passed away. Or in any instance, we know all too well that they've died with what quote unquote paper debts. But the reality is there's a higher spiritual practice that's behind this. But in reality, you are not responsible for the debt of another. Just like someone can't go to war for you, or someone else can't be, called for as a witness in your place instead of you in order for something to be first-handedly known. That's illogical. So it's not binding upon the spiritual matter, it's binding upon the physical, because the physical is what exists on the paper. See what I'm saying? The physical. Now, if you know the mirror image that you possess, you would take these bills, you would properly dress them back up, you would do your packaging and information regards to having a functional UCC1 superior security interest file. And if you put a certain amount upon that UCC1 filing that has been certified, then guess what? That means that any debt that you could say that I accrue in my natural instance, as opposed to being transferred to the straw man by a transmitting utility, will be absolved because I have the interest secured on record. And I'm not going to repeat that again. Simple. You owe no man nothing. Period. You owe no system. You owe no government. You owe nobody nothing. Owe is a word that often inscribes upon the conscience of the person who believes in I owe, that I must produce. In any instance, whenever someone says you owe something, you never question it. Now, a lawful debt is one that's actually taken out between two people. Mutual agreement, what we call the meeting of the minds, and so forth. If there is no meeting of the mind, there's no meeting of the conscience about what this agreement is. And if it's handled through several administrators, then you better keep yourself safe and practice it in due diligence, and be the holder in due course of the instrument that is of superior security interest. Other than that, you will never come to the fulfillment of a discharge process, and they will only hand you your paperwork back to you and make you look like you're a fucking idiot. I said it as calmly and as placidly as I can, but this is the truth. You must come to a higher realization. Some people, when I first met them, they thought that these processes were trying to acquire them properties such as cars, such as houses, such as all those other things. Let me tell you something. I've never at any instance on my channel promoted that. And from this day forward, and to this day ad infinitum, I never will promote that type of ideology. First off, as I said in the previous video before, minimize the debts accrued against you, and you can enjoy the fruits of labor of what you acquire at a later time. If you don't satisfy or totally demolish those debts, then what you actually proceed on a future venture will be taken from you. He who has, more will be given. He who thinks that he has, even what he thinks that he has, shall be taken away from him. Now you understand the legal maxim and principle behind that statement, because it's all about you absolving yourself of the debts in which they say you owe. If you did a harm to a person or property, yeah, you deserve all the negative marks against you. But if you're an upstanding person and you know morally by your own righteous conscience and within yourself, and you know that you govern yourself by a temperance and a certain behavior, but you just fell into some sort of contract that basically didn't misinform you, but didn't fully inform you about what it was worth, then now this is your chance. Anyone who wants to debate that issue, let me tell you something. I don't debate people on these issues. Some of y'all have actually gotten information from disinformation agents who are purposely put on social media to dissuade you, to take you away from the path of the simplicity of the truth of what discharge really is. There are some web pages I've even ran through over the years that even spoke against the concept of redemption. Now, I know that redemption particularly is nothing wrong with that, because if you understand, it's all about gaining back what you particularly lost. Any website, any entity, any so-called guru, any channel, anybody who puts videos up that speaks against the value of redemption is a fucking agent. Period. Anyone who has accrued an amassed amount of knowledge and basically still pretends that they don't know what these discharge processes are is a fucking agent. Anyone who comes to y'all, people who are in the audience today, tomorrow, and to the future, who says that they have the key, they have the be-all, end-all with regards to redemption, y'all sending y'all money to a fucking agent. Or ghost organization. They're all tied into each other, because they don't care about the well-being of the public. The agenda is to keep the ignorance of these processes to a low pitch. Serious. Just like I asked a lot of people yesteryear, who's the debtor on your UCC1 form? Well, I put my name wrong. You fucked up. What do you mean? Then I go into an elaborate format and show them that you cannot be the debtor because you didn't create the debtor account. You only accrued the interest by other shareholders in the corporation by participation and usage of that number. But you are not the debtor. You can't be two things at once. You can't be a debtor, which is a fictional entity, and a creditor at the same time. Now, if anyone wishes to debate me on that issue, don't debate me off conjecture. Debate me off of what you have as research, and I can show you where your conscience is flawed. And I can also show you if you led some sort of informative movement against people that you have totally robbed them of their fucking funds. Because you didn't know what you were talking about in the first place. Secure transactions solely deal with natural people. And natural people standing in the capacity of actually not being abused by deficient commercial fictions. It is what it is. What else do I need to say? You just learned a very significant truth in less than 16 minutes. Now, I know some of my videos, I might be a little bit boisterous. I might yell, might frighten a couple people. Oh, well. I'm relaxed because I meditated. You know, when I meditate, everything seems to just go naturally. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind raising my voice because sometimes you just have to just let people know where you come from. In this video, I don't want people to be disheveled about what I'm saying because I want you to gain the approach that discharge is very simple. If you would like further instruction, those who are already browsing my channel, further on, later down the line, please, by all means, contact me. Serious inquiries only. For those who are just coming to the newbies, I should say, to the newbie community, to these processes, hang on. Because it's going to be a lot for you to unravel because you're going to have to deprogram everything you think you know. And to you agents out there who are sitting out here giving away what you think is the truth to people, and you're basically leading them further into a destructive trap, fuck you. Straight. Because over the years, I've ran into people who have what I call, in my own personal definition, selective identity. Selective. They have an identity that's very selective. They come across as well-meaning, honest people, so forth, but in reality, they're trying to subvert the knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge points that I touch bases on in my channel, but I will not disseminate this information to agents because I know exactly who they are and why they're trying to use it. Now, as I said in my previous videos years ago, there's nothing you can do against the truth but for the truth. So you can subvert it all you want, but that's fine. Because to this day, in my repertoire, I maintain and hold a large number of volumes of things that otherwise cannot be found on what we call Google God. Now, I'm not bragging or boasting, but I know that this is the integrity to maintain the stringency of the actual processes of discharge. So, y'all can fuck off, agents. Now, for those who are of good and moral, upright character and people who really want to shoot forward in their own processes and make sure that you can keep this beast system, this debt system, this slave system off your back, stay tuned. If you wish to embark upon the journey by your own self-determination to come to a realization about what this stuff is, stay tuned. If you're an agent, fuck you, straight. And you're going to sink with the same bullshit system that's sitting here trying to disillusion people into making them believe that y'all are the be-all, end-all, and y'all really aren't shit. I said it. Straight. And we'll say it again and again and again. Learn how to assess your debts and learn how to free your natural self from the entanglements of what we call commerce. Don't be a slave to commerce. Freedom exists in spirit. It doesn't exist in a piece of paper. Someone sends you a piece of paper, you question that piece of paper. Don't accept it because notice that you accept it on two terms. You accept it physically and you accept it mentally because you hold yourself in compliance with the acceptance of it. And by your silence or putting off your paperwork or letting your paperwork just sit on your table, you have to realize that in every bill there is a due date. So due date means it goes into collection, which means the account runs to deficit. If you have not gathered or garnered your proofs of claim, you are going further into debt. And I won't say no more on that note. Please email me for serious inquiries in regards to clarification. Yes, people, I will say it. And you can call me arrogant all you want if you feel like it, but don't waste my time. My time is valuable. I use my time to garner my own personal needs and the needs of those that are around me that I love near and dear. Other than that, I don't waste nobody's time. Don't waste mine. Email is in the video description. Y'all stay tuned. Because guess what? We will continuously keep on in regards to the processes of letting those things that were once in the dark come to the light. Peace, light, love to y'all. Y'all stay safe out there. And make sure y'all stay away from the Sultan. Y'all know what it is. Stay awake.